Hi, and welcome to this CMT talk show. This talk show is brought to you by the Worldwide Gospel Church of Kenya, Central Kenya region, and we are here to talk about money and the believer and find how do they relate. Before we do that, I'm going to ask my panelists to introduce themselves. I'll start with, on my right, with Faith. She will introduce herself, and then thereafter, we shall be able to continue. Faith.
Thank you. Praise the Lord. My name is Faith Gishuhe. I'm born again. I love Jesus Christ as my personal savior. I am married to one John Gishuhe, and we have 3 children. I am an accountant by profession. I hold a bachelor's degree in commerce, and I'm a member of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya. I think for now, that is the much I will say about myself.
Wow, thank you very much. That's great wealth, and I want to believe that we shall be able to benefit from that wealth as we have our discussion today. We also have David. David will introduce himself and tell us who he is.
Praise the Lord.
Amen.
My name is David Wahome. I am born again. I love Jesus Christ as my personal savior. I am an accountant by profession. I have a career spanning for many years, from audit to currently I'm the finance director of Dimension Data, and I have been the treasurer of Worldwide Gospel Church Buruburu for the last more than 20 years, and I am married and I have 2 children, and that can be my introduction for now.
Wow, great. The room is full of accountants, and I want to believe that the Lord will minister to us through their voices. Accountants also get saved. My name is Reverend Bernard Waroe. I am the Deputy Presbyter, Kagudo Road Presbytery. I'm also an accountant, and I'm delighted to host these 2 great panelists, and I want to believe that as we move on, we will have a great time together. My first question, which will go to both of them, Ecclesiastes 10, verse 19 says that money answers everything. But again, when we go to 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10, it says that the love of money is the root cause of all evil. Faith, is this a paradox, or how do you explain that?
Reverend, I think this statement, this is not a paradox.
Mm-hmm.
Because when Solomon said that money answers everything, I think he was talking about the worldly needs. Our worldly needs. We need money to even cater for our worldly needs. But money does not answer everything when it comes to our spiritual lives, because it cannot give us happiness, it cannot give us peace. But our worldly needs, like we need food, we need to pay our rent, our medical bills. I believe that is what Solomon wanted to talk about, that for our worldly needs, we need money. Then when it comes to Paul in the book of 1 Timothy, he said that the love of money is the root of all evil. And when we look at the word love, love is an emotion. So Paul was trying to tell us not to be emotionally attached to money, because when we do, we will end up committing a lot of evil. Nowadays, money has been given a lot of importance, When you want to measure somebody's worth, people talk in terms of money. You will never hear somebody saying, if somebody is asked, what is he worth? You will never hear anyone saying that in terms of their ability. They always talk about that person's worth in terms of money. So money has been given a lot of importance. And even you count somebody's fame according to the amount of money they have. So, and this leads people to pursue money in all kinds of ways. And in the end, they end up doing evil things, like people bribe, people cheat, and even killing. So I think that is what Paul was talking about. We should not be emotionally attached to money.
Wow.
I think that's my take.
We should not be emotionally attached to money. David, what's your take on these 2 verses?
Thank you, Faith. I think Faith have said a lot of what I would most likely also. I need just to add a bit on what Faith has said. Money is important, and to a big extent, it's being worshipped by some people as a god, and that is where the Bible says money can be the root of all evils. If you take money above God, if you take money to be God in your life, And this has happened to some people, that you find somebody can do anything in this world to make money. Somebody can kill, somebody can corrupt. And one thing one always need to understand is that you need a certain amount of money to live in this life. And you don't need to be billionaire to be comfortable or to live happily in this world. So when the Bible says money also answers everything, there are so many things that we need in life that money helps. And that is what you need money to do those things. You need money to pay your daily expenses. You need money to pay your rent. You need money to develop yourself. And you need money that you have earned light-free, and the money that God has blessed you with. But any other money that you try to earn in the long way, that is the root of all evils, because you find people doing a lot of unbiblical things to earn money, because we have also tended as a generation to respect people because they have money. You find that those who don't have money, even their points in life are not considered. But I can say that both statements are correct, and there is no contradiction. But money is and also money is good, and God blesses us with money. But how we get the money and how we use our money can be the root and cause of all evils. Thank you.
Wow, I hear something from both of you, and what you're simply saying is money is overrated, that people use money as a measure of all these things. Then, my brother David, what should be the attitude of a believer towards money?
As a believer, the most important thing you need to understand is that you are a custodian of money. Money does not belong to you. God gives you money as a custodian on his behalf. And when somebody gives you something, when you keep money, say for example in a bank, the bank must use the money prudently, because with the time you will go back for your money. So even us as believers, God has given us money as custodians. And we should always know that we are accountable for what God has given us. So when you talk of how to use money, you have to understand that you are accountable to God on the money that God gives you.
Wow, that the money we have, we are just custodians. It's not something that belongs to us. It's not something that is ours. We shall be accountable. Faith, what should be the attitude of a believer towards money now that you feel people are using money to measure who is important, who's worth? How should a believer view money?
I think David has actually said it correctly, that we should be stewards. Everyone should view money as you are a custodian of what God has placed in you. That treat money as something that does not belong to you, and you are accountable to that, the amount of money that God has given you. You are just a steward, and a steward does not own anything. Like the Bible tells us in the book of Psalms chapter 24 and verses 1, that God owns everything, So we do not own this money. We are just stewards, like my brother has said. So we are accountable to God for the money that God gives us. That should be the attitude of a believer towards money.
Wow, we do not own anything. We do not own anything. God owns everything, and we are here on his behalf. Financial planning. Do you think Christians should do any planning when it comes to money? Faith?
Yes. Actually, every believer should do financial planning. And when we talk about financial planning, a believer should look at their income and the needs that they have, and then plan how to spend this money. And the most important thing is to come up with a budget. Mm-hmm. Then prioritize what according to your needs. Have priorities. What should you do first, and what should come last? So it is very important for believers to plan financially.
David, do you believe in financial planning, or just spend? Get the money, spend, enjoy life, and move on?
I think financial planning is the most important thing if any believer is to succeed, and also to give glory to God for the money God has given him. Whenever you are planning, and you have to start with, how much do I earn? How much do I get at the end of the month? Then you come and remove the tithe, remove the other things that are very important. In planning, There is what you call necessities, and there is also what you call luxuries. And you must always prioritize what is necessary for you to survive. For example, if you use a matatu or a bus to go to work, you must prioritize that. You must also prioritize your rent. You must prioritize things that you must have. And even when you are planning even to borrow money from a bank, you must always know that the net you will get after you pay all those loans will be enough to pay for your fixed expenses, for what you must, for your necessities. So as a believer, we must start with good financial planning. Because if you don't do the right financial planning, you will be in the trap of borrowing from Shylocks, from people who will cost you more than even what you're earning.
You've brought in a very thorny issue, the issue of debt, the issue of borrowing from Shylocks, from neighbors, from relatives, from everyone. Are you saying that borrowing is wrong?
No, borrowing is wrong, but it must be borrowing for doing something that is important to your life. But if you find yourself, you are borrowing for your day-to-day learning, you are borrowing not to develop yourself, but borrowing to do things that are daily expenses, then there is a problem with your planning. What you need to understand is that you need to borrow to do what we call in finance capital expenditure, but not recurrent expenditure. Recurrent means the money that you spend every day, but capital means something to invest in your future. So as believers, we should always have wisdom, especially when we start thinking of borrowing.
Faith, the other day I went to the supermarket and bought my son a pair of shoes. And when I brought it to him, he said, I don't like it. And so I took him and we went with him to the supermarket and he chose the shoe that he wanted. However simple it looks, it made me to think, when we are spending money and planning and all this, do we need to involve stakeholders or can the husband or the wife decide this is how I'll spend my money? Are stakeholders important to be involved in financial planning and financial spending?
It's very important for people when they're planning to involve all stakeholders, and especially for families, a couple should be both involved, husband and wife. When the husband is doing something that concerns money, they should involve their wives. And there should be no secrets when it comes to money. There should be no secrets between couples. Let your spouse know how much you earn. Let your spouse know what you intend to do, or you do it together. It is very important for each and every stakeholder to be involved when it comes to money, and that way you'll be able to manage money well. You can decide whether you want to have a joint account or you share responsibilities depending on your needs. It's very important to involve each and every person in planning your finances.
Great. You said you're a wife, and there's this adage, this that people say, his money is our money, my money is my money. Is that a good way of doing things?
No, I don't believe that is good, because a wife is supposed to be a helper to the husband, and it includes even financially. You're supposed to be a helper to your husband in financial matters. So that thing of my money is mine and his money is ours, I don't believe in it. I don't agree with that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it's all our money. It's all our money.
Our money.
We put it together, we plan together, we spend together,
yes,
and we enjoy our money together. David, what are some of the major pitfalls when it comes to management of finances, and maybe from earning, spending, planning for it, especially for believers? In your observation, what has been some of the major pitfalls along the way?
Thank you very much. I think the major pitfalls when it comes to financial management is when you spend money because you have it, or you we call it impulse buying. You buy things that you have not planned for. You walk around in town, you see a shoe, you had not even budgeted for the shoe, you buy. You go, you hear your friend is selling his car, you have another car, you end up buying 2 cars and you don't need them. The biggest pitfall, the biggest challenge with financial management is when you use money without planning. You spend and for things that you had not planned for things the family had not agreed on. The other most important thing you need always to understand, especially as a husband, is whatever you are doing for your family, and you need to involve them. You cannot be investing for your family and you are not involving them. You need to make them aware, because especially our wives are very, very key people in terms of what we invest in, because they have a second, I can call it a second degree of wisdom, that they can always warn you before you do the long investment. So the biggest, the challenge I would always ask, especially husbands, is involve your wife in any decision you are making to do with money. Because if you succeed, you will succeed with them. And also understand, if you fail, you will fail with them. So it's important that you budget, you buy things that you have planned for, and also plan what you need to help other people, and also don't just help somebody because he is in need. Especially, even if it's relatives or friends, if somebody comes to you and asks you, give me 10,000, you just don't have to give him because you have it in the bank. You have to ask yourself several questions. Will he pay? Am I giving him for free? And if you realize that it's somebody that you are not sure, limit your exposure in terms of what you help people with and what you lend people money to, and the people you lend money, because that has been the biggest challenges, especially with the believers. When a believer comes and borrows you money and you give him only for him not to pay you, limit your exposure in everything that you do. That's what I can say that makes most of the believer gets into a challenge of financial, because of not planning and sometimes doing impulse buying and giving loans to people who will never pay them. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. I hope men are listening. You said that women have a second degree of wisdom. Wow, that's powerful. I hope men out there are hearing, and they should start viewing their wives as people who have been given by God that second degree of wisdom. But you've brought in something very, very, very itchy. You've talked about people being given money and not paying back. And sometimes we have these even destroying or even wrecking relationships in the church. If I led my brother because he has need, and he eventually doesn't pay me back, and it could be a substantial amount of money, how am I supposed to address it? Should I take him to the police? Should I take him to court? Should I just assume and let the money go?
I would advise brethren or everybody to have a limit of what you can lend to your brother, to your sister, depending on your income. It's normally a big challenge when you find a brother lending his brother another 100,000 or more, money that if this brother doesn't pay, will totally impact his financial capabilities, will totally cripple his financial abilities to do whatever he is doing. Put a limit in your life. Say, I will not lend somebody more than this amount. Say 10,000, 2,000. And when you are lending people, understand that you are not a financial institution. One brother told me that when somebody comes to you to lend you money, there are people who are specialized in lending money. There are circles. There are banks. Direct him to the bank. Tell him where he can get a loan. Because you are not a lender. Understand always that you don't have the capability of correcting the money. As my brother is saying, if you lend somebody a lot of money and he doesn't pay you, you don't have that knowledge of how you can go auction his properties, sell his properties. Leave that business to bankers. Leave that business to lenders who are specialized in doing that. Lend people what even if they don't pay you, you will still survive and you will still continue with your life as normal.
Wow, you are not a financial institution. You are not there to save people's lives, and you don't have the capability. That's deep. That led that which you're willing to lose. And I always say, you must always be able to say no and not feel guilty, because only Jesus Christ is the savior of the world. You cannot save people from all their financial issues. Faith, what are some of the pitfalls, major pitfalls you've observed among believers in terms of financial management?
Thank you for that question. I think I would just add to what David has said, that we need to budget. That is very important. Lack of budgeting is a major pitfall. And then the other pitfall is that you budget and you don't stick to that budget, you know. When you budget, you need to stick to that, follow that budget that you made. Like he said, some of us, and especially women, we are culprits. We do impulse buying, which is very bad because you had not budgeted for that. So, and then maybe another pitfall that is there is that you spend beyond your means, you know, and that leads to borrowing. And like my brother is saying, when you borrow, you become a slave. Actually, that is what the Bible says in the book of Proverbs, chapter 22, that when you borrow, you become a slave to your lender. And most of the time, when you do impulse buying, you are not able even to pay the money that you borrowed. And the Bible tells us, I think in the book of Psalms 37, that the wicked borrows and does not repay. And because we do not want to be wicked, we should live within our means. Let's not go beyond our means. Yeah.
So we should live within our means. But we are men and women of faith. Why can't I spend by faith? You know, just go, take a loan or start a project, believing. You know, I'm a man of faith.
It's good to practice faith, but you must also look at how your income is, you know, that if I borrow, I have a plan of how I will repay. Because most people borrow without having a plan. Faith is important, but we need also to look at the reality of life, you know. How am I going to repay once I borrow? I think that's what I can say.
Faith is important, but we need to look at the reality of life. David, many times we may be in one position, financial position today, and tomorrow it changes, and we find ourselves in a financial crisis. Maybe we had a job, we knew that we would be able to pay the loan. We got into this rental house, we knew that we would be able to pay. But with time, we find that we may have lost the job, we may have lost the business, and therefore, we find ourselves in a very tricky position. What are some of the adjustments you'd advise believers to be flexible to take for them to be able to manage financial crisis once they find themselves in it?
I think the most important thing in when you are working or when you are earning is to understand that there will be a time that you will not be able to earn what you are earning. And a wise man always plans ahead. And when you are earning money, it's important to put some money somewhere or to save or to invest in a way that when that time comes, you'll have something to lean on or to live on. Because as you know these days, you can be helping people, but don't think that the same people will help you when you are in need. So it's also very important that you put something somewhere. You invest in a way that even if you don't get your regular income, at least you can survive for some time. People say that it's important that at any one time you have at least 2 months of your income somewhere saved, so that in case of a challenge, you can at least survive for 2 months without your regular income. But you find some people is like they live hand to mouth. So when a small challenge comes in their life, it becomes very difficult for them to continue. So I would ask brethren to always know that it's important to put something somewhere for a rainy day. And that will always help us because things will always change. Nobody expected this COVID to come to this part of the world or in the whole world. Now this is a challenge nobody expected. But woe to those who had nothing, who are consuming everything, because now they are finding the situation very difficult. So it's very important for one to always work for an emergency, that one day there will be something that will be beyond your control.
Thank you very much. Faith, you said something, spending within your means.
I believe you should adjust your lifestyle if you're hard pressed financially. If you feel that you cannot maintain your lifestyle, it's always good to adjust according to your finances. And like my brother said, it is important to save for a rainy day, but you don't need to exhaust your savings because you want to maintain a certain lifestyle. So I believe it's important to adjust your lifestyle if you're hard pressed financially.
So moving to a level that would seemingly seem lower than where you were before is not lowering yourself from where God had lifted you up to.
No, I don't believe so, because it means you're living beyond your means, which is not very good.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Thank you very much. David, you said that you're the treasurer of the church. You're the one who guards the coffers, and I hope they are well guarded. And I hope people are still giving, even during this season. But giving is a Christian discipline that every believer should adopt. And as we talk about financial management, I don't think it's something that we would want to leave behind. What do you have to say about giving in church?
I think the first most important thing every believer should know is that it's God who gives us. And especially like the tithe is a tenth of what God has given you. So that belongs to God. And even as you do your planning, as you do your financial plan, you need always to know that as a Christian, you have an obligation to support the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we support the gospel by giving our money. And even as some people say that how is that money used, how will they, but I can tell you, your responsibility as a member of the church is when you give your money, leave it now to the pastor, to the council to manage. And before God, we as the council, we know we are also accountable to God, and we have to use the money prudently for the gospel of Jesus Christ. So I have been a treasurer of Worldwide Gospel Church, and we have always used our money prudently, and we have always made sure that even our member know exactly where our money goes, where do we spend our money, what do we do, you know, all those things. We are accountable, and we even have an AGM, and we make sure that all of us understand, just as a family, we are accountable to the members who give the money to the church.
Thank you very much. You've brought out two things. Of course, one is we should give, but the second thing is that the church should be accountable. But here am I. I'm a church. I go to church. I'm a believer. I give, and when I look at how money is being spent, I'm not happy with it. What should I do? Should I just sit back, give, and allow my money? Because we have many churches out there. Maybe even not necessarily Worldwide Gospel Church of Kenya, but someone is reasoning and wondering, should I just sit and watch as money that I gave to serve God is being used on other things?
As a believer, you can put your comments to the council, to the church, and if there is a challenge, I believe there are men of God, they would understand. But what is most important for a member is to make sure you have done your part. You have given your money to the church. And know that even the leaders of the church will be accountable before God. Just as you are accountable of your money, even the leaders of the church, the elders, the pastors, they are also accountable before God. And also their reward, and it's also dependent on how they use that money. So as a council, we all understand that as much as we cannot let church money be misused, because we are also accountable before God. And if there is any issue that would come that we feel maybe is not right, we will always raise it at council level. And also, like our church, the Worldwide Gospel Churches of Kenya, we have a lines of complaint. There is a national level. There are so many levels that you can raise your issues. The worst thing is to murmur and to discourage others. But if you can raise your issue openly, the church has the mechanism to address all the issues.
Great. Faith, now David has spoken from the perspective of being the treasurer. He sits at the managing seat. But maybe you can speak from the perspective of a member who is giving money to the church. And what would be your expected level of accountability from the church?
First of all, let me say that giving is a command. When the Bible, in the book of Matthew, chapter 6 says, when. It means when, not if you give. It is when you give, meaning we are commanded to give. So giving is a command. And we know that God is a giver. He gave his son to us, and we need to imitate him. So you should take your part as a member, give your tithe and your offering. And actually, tithe should be the bare minimum of what we give. So we need to support the work of God. And this means we are expanding the spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ, because when you support the work of God, we are supporting ministers who go ahead and spread the word of God. We are supporting missionaries who are in the field. So we need to give for this work. As members, it is very important to give. It is a command.
Wow. Great. We can't leave this discussion without talking about retirement. That sometimes they say once you retire, then you just have a few years to live. And one of the things that have been attributed to this is because of financial difficulties. They don't still have the financial streams, the streams of money they had before. Faith, what would you say when it comes to retirement planning and being ready for retirement? Do I need to wait until I'm 50 to start planning?
No, I don't think you need to wait until you're 50 to start planning for retirement. It is important that we start planning for retirement as soon as possible. As soon as you get a source of income, start saving for retirement. And that, I think that is why even the government has the NSSF program, because it's a way of saving for retirement. And it is important. I know sometimes it's hard because sometimes we don't even have enough to save. And most of us really, to be sincere, don't save for retirement, but it is very important. It's very important to start planning. Come up with a plan of how you're going to save for retirement. The Bible tells us that we are the ones who should leave an inheritance to our children. But the way things are at the moment, it's like we keep relying and thinking that when we retire, our children will take care of us. But it's the opposite of the Bible, because we are the ones who are supposed to leave an inheritance for our children, not to look up to them to take care of us during retirement.
Wow. So every believer listening today, if you have to stay within the word, then you have to keep to the word. Leave a retirement for your children. David, yes. Should we plan for retirement, or it will take care of itself?
Of course. As Faith has said, the first day you get a job, understand that that job will come to an end one day. So retirement start immediately you start earning an income. And it's also very important to plan that when you retire, at least you can earn, if not much, at least 50% of what you are earning when you are working. Because also your expenses will go down, and also you will need money still to maintain some of your lifestyle.
Yeah, if I would cut you briefly, you said that in retirement you need to earn. What do you need to do? Some practical things that you can do to make sure you earn at retirement.
There are several things that I have found. There, as Faith has said, there is NSSF. Mm-hmm. There is also, if you can also build. You can build an estate. You can build a house that you'll be renting. You can also do what we call, there are government boards. There are so many ways that you can save, even buying land that you can be farming, doing something that will occupy you after you retire. Because especially those of us who are used to a life of a salary every month, it's very important that you do something that will give you a monthly income. Because after you retire, your needs will not end there. Actually, sometimes you find things like medical increases. You find that a lot of expenses, some of the expenses that you are even incurring when you are working, they still continue, like food and other things. And some families may not be lucky that even their children will not have finished school. So you have to plan your retirement with all those things in mind. Look at the age of your children. Look at your health. Look at all those factors. Those can dictate to you exactly what you need after you retire. And when you talk of retirement is not basically like getting to 60 years. These days, people are retiring even at 40. So as I said earlier, always remember a rainy day, that there will become a time that you will not have an income. And don't think or don't depend on your children to support you. Or don't depend on your brothers or your relatives, because they will let you down big time. So what I would urge you is, as you earn, always take aside something for your retirement, or join a circle, Invest, buy a plot, such that you will have something you can rely on when you will not be earning.
Wow, time fails us. We don't have much time. We just have to bring it to an end. But we can finalize with this before we give our final remarks. Here you are, you get a child, and you know that in 18 years, this child will be going to university. What happens then that sometimes we have to ask people to come and fundraise and help us take a child that we knew 18 years before would go to university? Do you think it's out of poor planning, Faith?
I think so. Most of the time it is because of poor planning. And also, I would say that sometimes it's because we are hard pressed for money. Maybe some of us live hand to mouth. So I can't pin it really to poor planning, although it's part of it.
Wow, wow,
Yes.
thank you. Faith is very careful. She doesn't want to sound like she's so hard on these people. But David, honestly, if I have a child who is in class 1 now, I know that in 8 years, this child, if it was the old system, will be going to Form 1. So should I be running around looking for money in January when the child should report to school in February? Well, 8 years ago, I knew the child will go to school.
I think, okay, what happens that should not happen in reality, but it happens. Some of these things sometimes happen, you plan, it doesn't work. But genuinely, you should carry your own financial burden as much as possible. If it's your children, plan to educate them yourself. Plan to make sure that they go through their education with your own resources. So, because these things happen, you cannot really say that somebody did not plan, some emergencies come, but a prudent person, you should plan for education of your children as early as possible, so that you will not, if you don't educate them, there are bigger challenges than even than not educating them. So it's key that you plan in advance. You plan for your children education, plan for your medical, plan for where you live, and that is key that is very important in life.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. I would like to give each one of you 1 minute to give you final remarks, and then we will end.
Okay. I think I'll say this. Money in itself is not evil. Actually, God desires that we live a life of abundance because everything belongs to Him and we are His children. But we as believers, we need to be very careful because money is deceitful and it can make you stray from the faith. So we need to be very careful as we live in this life of abundance, that the way we spend our money should be to glorify God.
We should live lives of abundance. So being poor it's not correlated to spirituality. So thank you very much. David, what are your final remarks?
I would say money is very good, and it's very important for all of us to have money, but also the most important thing than everything else is how you get your money. It's very important that you play and all the money you have be God-given. So, and also you understand that, as I have said, it's important to save, and it's also important to keep something for tomorrow.
Wow, deep insights about money and the believer. Starting from how you make it, how you plan for it, how you spend it, how you plan for retirement, how the pitfalls you need to avoid, and great insights. And for me, one thing I've learned, I'm not a financial institution. I am not there to help people deal with their financial woes. They should know where to go. Thank you very much for joining us today. We are delighted that you took your time to watch this video. May the Lord bless you. And I want to believe that the insights we have shared will help you, not only as a believer, but a believer who ought to live in abundance when it comes to the provisions of God. God bless you and grant you His favor as you make money the right way, plan the right way, and spend the right way. God bless you.